topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Who is January Jones? She is not a young, beautiful, talented actress on Mad Men. She is not an older, gorgeous, exotic dancer from the Johnny Carson show. She is an author, and she wrote Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, that reached #1 at Amazon.com. She is a reality TV golf personality with World High Stakes Golf televised on HDNet. She is a humorist and winologist expert. She is your featured host today on January Jones Sharing Success Stories. So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and listen to Ms. Jones with her eclectic roster of guests as you learn life's lessons. These stories plus sharing equals success. Welcome, and remember, beware, because you are entering the no whining world of January Jones.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. I'm January Jones, and I would like to welcome you to our podcast. As you know, my new brand is the Glitter Granny. Women all wear many hats as we go through life. And today I'm wearing my light blue hat. It's my interview hat today. Now for my listeners, let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought about being a woman's teacher? Do you even know what a woman's teacher does? Have you ever met someone who has walked the walk, talked the talk in the field of human healing? Do you know what a sound pill is? I don't, but we're going to find out today. Can you imagine what it would be like to actually day to day inspire women in 63 countries? Tell me, would you like to meet someone who will share her experiences healing through sound with up to 4 voices at one time? Have you ever heard of a very famous meditation concert called Voice and Cosmos? If you can answer yes or maybe to any of these questions, then you are in the right place, and I would like to welcome you to January Jones Sharing Success Stories. So now it's time for you to take a break, time to rest, relax, go get some wine, get some cheese and crackers, so you can join me in the no wine zone. Now let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. My guest is the roaring voice of true feminine essence, the world leader in applied spirituality for women. Using an ultra-high, low overtone form of singing that she developed, she can produce up to 4 voices at one time. It's a unique sound that has been scientifically proven to heal in many studies conducted with her. It's my pleasure to welcome to our podcast today, Periquois. Hi, Periquois. How are you doing today?
Hello, January. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm great. I'm in the evening time on another part of the planet from you, so we're well into the night here.
Oh, okay. And where country are you in right now?
Right now, I'm in Moscow, Russia.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's definitely in a different time zone. Were you, let me ask you, were you born in Russia?
No, I'm Australian by blood, and but I'm married to a very beautiful Russian man who I've been married to for 12 years. So Russia is one of my homes.
Okay, wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about how you began this incredible journey. So you were born in Australia, and how did it start for you? How old were you when you first realized that you may have this gift, this talent?
Definitely the passion for singing kicked in when I was about 3 years old.
Very young.
I don't think you realize at that stage I don't think you realize you have a gift or a talent at that stage. You have passion normally. So I definitely had passion for singing when I was very, very little. But it certainly wasn't supported in my life until I was very much in my late teens. So it's kind of was like a sleeping gift.
Okay.
Until I was about 17.
Okay. So up to then, you've just had, share with us what your life was like as a child growing up in Australia.
Well, it was very challenging for me as a young girl because I was born with a congenital hip disorder, and which made me walk like a duck and run like a duck and get teased a lot. When I was 11, I had an experimental surgery done on me where they cut both the legs off and turned the legs around and stitched them back together and pinned them together with irons and regrew the legs. So I went through like a massive life change at around 11 years of age. So I'd say that's when I gave up my child sensitive adult at that stage. So childhood finished for me at the age of 11.
11. Wow, that's very young. And take us back. When did your normal life start to change and start to transform you into the roller coaster ride that your life became?
I guess my mid-teens was a really, really big changing point. Apart from the surgery, obviously I had when I was 11, but when I was in my mid-teens, my mother stepped out of my life. And that was really monumental because she went and married another man. And I say another because it was her third marriage, and she'd had some very, very great tragedies in her life until that point. So when she married for the third time, I was really, really happy for her. But it also meant that she moved away from me totally and said, pretty much you're on your own. And that was a great blessing for me as a young woman, although it was really, really hard. Out of her pain body was very deep, and she was a very traumatized woman, but extremely repressed, so totally unemotional. And I carried a lot of her pain for her. And so I left her energy. This gift woke up in me. It was really like this gift for singing, which my mother, in later years, I realized she had totally suppressed it very consciously in me because my grandparents were amazing people. They were musicians. And so she had grown up as a young woman, in the back of cars, going to gigs and concerts in different towns. And she swore that one of her children would never become a musician. So she very much managed to push that down on me until she left my field. And then it woke up again at the age of about 17. And this was a great blessing for me. Of course, I doubted the gift enormously, but
right now, Periquois, we're going to take a break and we're going to talk about my book, Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment. So if you are a whiner or if you know a whiner, listen in. This is for you.
Lately, there's a whining epidemic in our world. People are even whining about whining. Are you sick and tired of listening to everyone whining all the time? So was January Jones, the author of Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, that reached #1 at Amazon.com. Ms. Jones based her book on a survey of the top 10 things that people whine about at all ages and all stages of life. January is a success coach that can tell you how to help others. When you buy Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th commandment, you'll find out what people whine about and how to stop them from whining. This is the perfect gift book to give or get for any occasion. Thou Shalt Not Whine was voted the best gift to be given anonymously for those special people in your life. Ms. Jones is an internationally known author in the style of Irma Bombeck, specializing in housewife humor with her book being published in Korea and China. You can find Thou Shalt Not Whine at Amazon.com.
Welcome back, and Thou Shalt Not Whine is now available at audible.com. Periquois, could you share with our listeners your contact information, your website, and how people can follow you?
Okay, yeah. So I have a very unusual name. So think about this name. The best way to spell it is like Peru, the country. Periquois is my full name. Kind of like Iroquois Indian, but it's Periquois. So periquois.com. And that's the best place to find me. And that's very much my whole online world there. You'll find all my music, all my feminine courses to help women to really heal and grow themselves. And also YouTube. I have a lot of video clips of performances, live performances, and songs and music clips on YouTube as well. It's a great place to find who is this woman.
Okay, wonderful. And I see that Juan has put that information on the screen below. So if you're listening to us, copy it down and be sure you go to and check her out. Now, you were so young when all this happened. Where do you think the strength came and the wisdom to help you get through that?
I really don't know where the strength came from to get me through that surgery that I went through, but perhaps just that I was blessed in that I was an old soul. So it was an internal strength somehow. And I think I also had this internal compassion for my mother, and I really just wanted to help her to get through what was a horrific divorce at the time, also when I was 11. And I think when I went through that surgery, I was not walking for several months, and I went to a center for disabled children whilst I was in a wheelchair. And this completely opened me up, because I realized that I was going to walk again. And these children all around me would never walk again. And this woke up at me this enormous compassion, enormous, and gratitude, such an incredible gratitude, because I was going to walk again and these kids were not. So, I really started to understand what the potential was of my life, even though it was so painful going through it,
Yeah. Now, what led you to pursue entering the music I can't say that word. You know what? Tell us about our musical career. Conservatory. Got it.
So when I was, conservatory, that's the one. When I was 17, I was just turning 17, 18. I went to the other side of the country to visit my crazy auntie, who my mother hated and said, don't ever visit her. She's crazy. But when I went to visit her, she said, oh, I've had a vision about your life. You're not going to be a psychologist, which is what my mother had convinced me I was going to be at that stage. She said, you're not going to be an actress. You're going to be a singer. You're going to be a jazz singer. And I said, Auntie, that's crazy, because you know how much training I have, like no training to get into conservatorium. You need to be well trained. And these kids, are really, really well trained from a very young age. And she said, mark my words, it will happen, my love. And you will go through conservatorium. Then you'll go to the next biggest city in Australia, which is Sydney, for the jazz scene. And then you will go to America. And then you'll go to the world stage. So she hit me with that vision on my 18th, just before my 18th birthday, and it seemed totally outrageous because I just couldn't see how it was even possible, But I spent that next year just studying like a crazy woman. I was waiting tables, in the evening, and I took a teacher in jazz singing, and I studied for hours every day. And by miracle, within the next year, when I applied to the conservatorium, I was accepted. So it was a destiny thing because it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened. I didn't have the years of experience behind me, but they obviously saw something in me. And so I went through that conservatorium training. But actually, just before I had gone to conservatorium, I was encouraged. And this is interesting because I see you work with people with success stories. This is a very interesting thing that happened to me when I was 17. And my mother had said, oh, you need to go and find somewhere to live. Like, I'm selling the family home and you need to go and find somewhere to live. So I rented a house with a woman I didn't know at all. And I was singing in her house one day just after I moved in. And she said, oh, my God, you're so talented. Like, what's this voice? And I said, oh, no, I don't really sing. And she said, you've got to go and train this voice. And I said, okay. I did my first singing lessons. I cried my eyes out every time I went to class because it was really like the soul communicating, through the body when I was like now on the right track. And this flatmate of mine said to me, well, if you could sing, why don't you write down on a piece of paper who you would sing for, why you would sing, and for how many you would sing. So I was 17 when I did that. And I wrote on this piece of paper, if I could sing, imagine, it seemed like such a dream. If I could sing, I would sing not just to entertain people, but to help to heal them. And not just on an emotional level, but on every level. And I would sing for millions of people all over the world. And this was what I wrote down when I was 17. So a very important thing to, encourage teenagers to dream.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that at 17, you created a vision board that you put out into the universe, and that it came back to you, and you had created, your vision had become your reality. Now, tell us what your very first concert was like, and how did you feel then?
Oh God, my first concert was absolutely terrifying because I was, I think, in my first year at college, and somehow my lecturers saw that I was talented, so they invited me to come and do a professional gig with all my teachers. And I was shaking like a nervous wreck. And I was supposed to have written all my charts, all my music, right? But I was not very proficient. Remember, I'm years behind all these other kids. So I wrote really bad charts, and the teachers could not follow my music. And I just felt so ashamed when I walked off that stage. Like, they will never ask me to sing again. And I totally failed. That really felt after my first concert. Of course, teachers are actually more forgiving than you realize.
For sure.
But
they're all going through it too. So then you became a successful jazz singer. And now, why did you leave that behind? And what prompted
when
you
I was
to
23,
go? 23.
Yeah. I was 23 when I had moved from one side of the country to the west, to the east, which was to Sydney, Australia. And that's where I had really I'd gone through hell to get there. I'd done day jobs and whatever it took, just to get to the place where I was working with the best musicians. But I realized at this point that I had compromised myself so much. Why? Because to be that successful, I had pushed down this original vision, which was very much not about being the sexy jazz singer, being, Miss Popularity. And I was very masculine. I was quite masculine driven, like quite egoic by this stage. And I knew that I was on the wrong path, and I was going up and down emotionally. And that for me was a really bad sign that I was not stable emotionally, And I was having those typical serotonin crashes that often artists have, after performance. And one day I just went to the ocean, and she was like my great guide. And I just stood on the edge of the rocks on the ocean, high up on a mountain. I said, Mother, I know I've gone wrong. I'm totally lost. And I felt so alone and almost suicidal because too many ups and downs. And I said, please show me where I've got. The elements just came and surrounded me. It was the wind, it was the roar of the ocean, the air, everything. It was very alive. And I started to respond to it by singing what I heard, which was not typical because I was a jazz singer, so I was always used to singing, jazz scales and songs. So to actually connect with nature with the voice was something different. And I started to sing totally with these elements as though they were caressing me, and about 2 hours went by. And at the end of this, I felt this immense peace, as if I had finally come back to myself. And it was such a miraculous healing that went on that I went the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day back to the same mountain, same ocean. And for about 2 weeks, I just emulated what I was hearing in the nature, as though she was speaking to me. And then after those 2 weeks, I had this experience where I just fell down into the earth, like prostrate, almost like a Muslim person when they're praying, or somebody, falling on the earth. And I had this experience where I fell into the earth as though my body dissolved down into the earth and filled up with this enormous love, like such a profound love. And it was so silent. And I realized that behind all the vibration, the sound of this world as we know it, as this planet, was this incredible feminine vibration, this voice with 1,000 different melodies that we call life, And when I realized the profundity of her love, I just said, wow, Mother, I'm yours, just sing through me, show me how to help other people understand who are we and how loved are we when we come back into this union, with our mother. And I think it was maybe 2 weeks after that, because I had no idea how to do it, how do you sing for the Mother Earth? It seemed almost like a absolutely ludicrous idea. But within 2 weeks, she sent to me a Native American medicine man who came down to Australia, was on his tour. When he met me, he said, I've been...
Before we do that, we're going to take a break. And we're going to hear about who killed Kennedy.
Sure, of course.
60 years after the assassination.
Let me ask you a question. Are you still wondering who killed Kennedy? Over 50 years later, the assassination is still a mystery. It is unfinished business for our country. Now, get ready for a theory that you've never heard before, but will make more sense than any other conspiracy theory that you've ever heard in the past. January Jones speaks the unspeakable in her book, Jackie, Ari, and Jack, The Tragic Love Triangle, connecting Jackie and Aristotle Onassis romantically prior to JFK's assassination. Did you know that Ari was Jackie's guest in the White House during the JFK funeral? He was the only non-family member who was invited by Jackie to stay there during the funeral. Aristotle Onassis was one of the wealthiest men in the world, with the means, the motive, and the money to order an assassination that was the perfect crime of the last century. Ari needed class, and Jackie needed cash. They were perfect for each other. Now, what is Camelot? It is but another tragic love triangle. Jackie, Ari, and Jack is available at JanuaryJones.com, Amazon.com, and audiobooks.com, read by Ms. Jones.
Welcome back to our podcast with Periquois. She's sharing with us how she received the gift from Mother Earth that enabled her to communicate in 4 voices to help teach women. Let's talk a little bit about this Native American medicine man, and he came into your life, and how did that affect you?
That was a pretty big life change, because he said, if you want to come and learn from me, you pretty much need to give up your life, everything that you are. You're just gonna have to let it go, which I did. I left my country, I left my career, I left everything behind, and I never went back to that old world, And it was deeply, deeply painful experience. I was together actually with him for about 11 years, and. But he certainly stripped a lot of layers off of me, a lot of my ego that had built up in that young jazz singer. He definitely ripped all of that off. And, I was very much immersed in a world that is outside the world that we know. I was up in the desert in New Mexico, up in the High Mesa Mountains. And I did a lot of ceremonies over those years, and that's where really my gift in those ceremonies opened up, so that people started to experience profound healings in the Sweat Lodge ceremony, which is a Native American healing ceremony.
I've heard of it.
And, over all these years in America, I spent a lot of time in the nature, cleaning myself out, and then at the same time learning how to really open up to a whole nother approach to using the voice and to sound and music. So I created a whole world of compositions that were very, very different to what I was singing when I was a jazz singer. That I would say now what I created over those years and have continued to create is a whole body of music that essentially, when people listen to it, and especially women, it helps them to totally feel their body and to feel the sense of connection and love, and at the same time enormous sensuality, because something that very much opened up over those years was rather than a more masculine approach to spirituality, which I would say the native path is very much more masculine in its approach, but something else opened up inside of me, and that was this capacity to be able to go in and feel the body so deeply, and a lot of sensual energy, a lot of orgasmic energy, a lot of the authentic energy that we carry in our womanly body, what woke up in me over those years. And so my music that I created does that for women.
Okay.
So now when they listen to it, they want to dance or they cry or.
Yeah. When you're talking about healing, conscious singer, healing women, are you talking about just spiritual healing, or does this include physical healing for these women?
It's really, I would say it can be on all kinds of levels. Because eventually what I designed was a whole body of practice to a feminine meditation practice that involves using sound. So what I did was I learned through my own healing process how to release the physical blockages in the body, the spiritual blockages, the emotional blockages in the body, through using both my voice, but of course the person who's doing the practice is also using their own voice. Because I really realized that the voice is the bridge between the body and the soul. Every person has this unique vibration that is their voice, that is tuned to be that bridge. So when they learn how to use it for healing, they become essentially guided by me into their own healing process. So the results of that, because I understand what you're asking me, the results of that is that women can switch on their hormonal system when they, for example, they maybe stopped their menstruation and doctors said, oh, you've got into early menopause. But they came into practice with me and they switched their whole womanly cycle back on again. You know, women who couldn't get pregnant. Early on in my journey with my first husband, I was involved in a very, very powerful healing ceremony. And there were 7 of us women. And basically, we took him into a ceremony. He had very bad bone cancer, which I don't know if you know about this particular cancer, but you cannot heal it. And the doctors said he was about to die. And using sound and connection to going inside that great cosmic lodge, which is a ceremony, and using the unified feminine sensual energy, we managed to cure him of that bone cancer. And that happened several times after, and that happened several times later when I started touring around the world, where people came specifically for those kinds of healings. But more than anything, because I also work online so much now, I've created practice so that women can affect this healing in themselves whilst they're being guided both by my voice, which is leading them through spoken practice, and at the same time, I've created phenomenally powerful soundtracks. And this is where you mentioned about the overtoning, where I think it was about 20 years ago, my voice, normally when we sing one tone, but my voice split into 2 and then sometimes 3 and sometimes 4. And I realized that through my own healing process, I understood how to get the different centers of the body resonating so that they restore themselves into a harmonious state. So I started creating special vocal soundtracks using these overtoning layers of voice, and people put them in their ears so they're listening to them whilst they're doing active practice themselves. And we're having phenomenal results where people are opening their heart, and a lot of physical healings happening, emotional healings happening, and people make radically new connections in the brain, in the pineal glands, in their womanly centers, in their womb, in their vagina, in the breast. Like the whole body starts to switch on and reattune itself back to that original frequency. And when love switches on in the body starts to actively go into self-healing. So that's my work, really. And so I do that.
We're going to take a break now and hear about some priceless personalities who have been on our show. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this healing process. And I know now everything's audible, so we'll hear more from Periquois. Have you ever met someone who was unforgettable? Someone who has touched your heart and soul? People who have faced difficult problems? People who have struggled to find solutions? People who fearlessly shared their stories? People who have not only informed you, but inspired you? People who have priceless personalities? I have been fortunate to host an internet radio talk show called January Jones Sharing Success Stories, and it has been my privilege to interview hundreds of guests. My guests have shared their stories, their struggles, their secrets, and their successes in their own words. In this book, we're talking about people dealing with problems such as incest, molestation, runaway kids, child abuse, drug abuse, polygamy, unemployment, scandal, and starting over. Then there are my guests dealing with difficult physical struggles such as blindness, cancer, and birth defects that are beyond traumatic. My guests have all been exciting, eclectic, and energizing. They have amazed, amused, and even astonished me. I have adored getting to meet them, and I adore sharing them with you.
Attention all listeners. Priceless Personalities, Success Stories Shared by January Jones, Volume 2 is now available at Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle editions. You'll be able to meet 10 amazing people who will be sharing their own personal stories with all their struggles, successes, and solutions, sprinkled with lots of humor and hope. Priceless Personalities features a teenager who becomes one of the famous Supremes from Motown, a nurse who as a humorist helps people to heal, an inspiring laughter yoga instructor, a mother dealing with the loss of a child, an incredible motivational speaker, a woman who married 5 times, a gifted paranormal nurse, a wise economist, a funny female humorist, along with an older man sharing his sweet childhood in the Deep South. January's guests are all amazing and amusing. You will never forget meeting them. Go to Amazon.com for your own priceless experience.
Welcome back with another very priceless personality that we're able to share with you today on our podcast. Periquois, what is the essence of your teaching?
The essence of my teaching is to really reroot a woman in her body, to open up that original flow of love, which is much bigger than just her flow, but to unify her with the big flow of love. And to restore her sense of this is me. And the essence is to really help her to open her own voice so that she becomes her own healer. And then, of course, she becomes the communicator in the world that she needs to be to change her life.
Right. Okay, now what was the most unusual project that you've done so far with your music?
Well, currently I am doing a concert tour, and this is very unusual merger that I've made. I don't think anybody's done what I've done on the planet yet. But I have merged the world of composition of music as a performing artist and as a teacher, as a facilitator of my feminine meditation practice. And so basically it's a concert meditation program. So I basically take anywhere up to 6,000 people into concert and then very deep states of meditation. And it's a technologically, it's a phenomenal project because I'm solo on stage, and I use really amazing surround sound systems in the concert halls that I work with. And the other thing that I do, because I'm very much about giving people the realization of who they are, and this concert is called Voice and the Cosmos. So on stage, they will see me standing or dancing or singing, but then my auric field is being projected at the same time onto a massive projection screen. So they'll see my physical body, and then they'll see my auric field, and it'll be moving as I'm singing, you know. And this is really powerful, especially when they then later go into practice, because they start to understand that there's so much more than the physical body. And especially then when I start splitting my voice into 2 or 3 very high overtones, really waking up those, the womb, the high centers, the pineal state of consciousness, people start to open up. A lot of people cry. People go into orgasmic states in the concert. So, you know, I'm in process again. I'm on the road the next few months giving this particular concert tour.
Okay. Now, how can our listeners find these concerts? And also, are you? This podcast is on YouTube. Are your concerts featured on YouTube at some point?
A lot of my yes, my concerts are on YouTube, definitely. This style of singing at on the meditation side, I don't tend to put as much of that onto YouTube, because I try not to bring the mind into the concert hall. It's like first half of the concert, the phones are all on, Instagram's being fed and everybody's, connecting to their worlds, like, look where I am, and enjoying the music. But in the second half of the concert, I normally have everybody's phones off and they go deep inside the body and close their eyes. So where people will actually hear this music is in my courses. So I've created very specific courses to wake up this connection in their body. And each of these courses have special soundtracks where people can go in, do the practice, and be tuned with these soundtracks. For example, when COVID hit, I created a practice because people were in so much stress and anxiety. I created a practice to bring people, root them back in the body, activate the will center, root the breath. And then I created a soundtrack where I'm singing like 4 levels of overtones, and I'm tuning their whole field of their body until they come into this very harmonic state. And it only takes about 15 minutes of listening to this track. It works very, very quickly because, I think the more fast the world has become, we don't have time to meditate for hours and hours like a Tibetan monk. So, my practices, I realize, need to be very fast and very, very effective.
Wow. Oh, this has been fascinating. And I hope our listeners will go to Periquois' website and check her out, and also check her out at YouTube. It's been a delight hearing from you. Your story is fascinating, and it's such an amazing thing. It's a success story that I'm glad you're able to share with our listeners. To our dear listeners,
it's been wonderful seeing the amazing books you've written.
Oh, yeah. To our dear listeners, we hope you've enjoyed our time together. We've tried to be informative, and she's been very inspiring today. My upcoming guests will all be eclectic, exciting, and energy, and just like Periquois. Next Tuesday, live at 2 p.m., Valerie Galloway, the author of Addiction, Steal, Kill, and Destroy, will be visiting with us. My 80-year-old thought for today is, now that as I'm getting older, I remember being able to swim across a lake. I remember being able to do a 100-pound bench press, run a mile. And also, I even remember being able to tell the truth. So very, very long ago. So there you go. Signing off from the Glitter Granny. Thank you for entering the No Whine Zone with us today. And remember to share our stories and our show with everyone you know. You need to remember to stop whining, and then you need to start smiling. And if that doesn't work, then you can just start eating chocolate. Lots and lots of chocolate. Thank you, Periquois. To my listeners, take care and stay safe until we meet. It's been wonderful. Bye-bye.
We want to thank you for listening to January Jones Sharing Success Stories. Always remember Ms. Jones' personal mantra, if you can think it, you can do it. That's what all of our guests have done with their lives, and so can you. You are the ultimate success coach in your own life. All you need to do will be to start sharing your own story with your family and friends. We hope that our guest stories will encourage you to explore an equation in your future that will combine your creativity plus connecting with others will enable you to be successful too. Always remember, your passion plus your purpose will equal prosperity as you explore the wonderful world of January Jones.